ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Page number 129, 20th mantra. Anoraniyaan Mahato Mahiyaan Atmasya Jantoho Nihito Guhayam Tamakratuhu Pashyati Vitashokaha Dhatu Prasadat Mahimanamatmanaha. Yesterday we saw Dhatu Prasadat Mahimanam Atmanaha. Dhatu Prasadat, by putting the effort to grow beyond the limitations of one's own mind and senses by actually controlling them. How does one control? Vita Tamakratuhu Vita Shokaha. Akratuhu, to raise above the constant flood of various kinds of desires. All these kratus are performed purely because of one or the other kind of desires. To raise to the status of being desireless. How does one raise to that? Because unless until we raise above, there is no possibility of Vita Shokaha. Vita Shoka, to be blessed by the Dukkha Nivritti. Without Dukkha Nivritti, there is no Shanti. And what is it that disturbs this and keeps it in that state of disturbance is our own desires and expectations. Therefore, whatever has to be performed, whatever has to be done by the individual is done with the standpoint that it is the already released prarabdha which has to be lived. But how you live is what classifies it that you can grow out of this dukkha. The attitude has to be completely changed. And that attitude we have insisted enough, saying that it is the Karma Yoga Siddhanta attitude, where the vasanas have to find a meaningful outlet, that thereby it is like a one-side valve that it is released and yet it is not creating further impressions. Tamakratuhu therefore becomes Vita Shokaha. And by that, Dhatu Prasadat Mahimanam Atmanaha. The organs of perception, action, mind and intellect, they become balanced, accessible and controlled, thereby diverting all the energies that which we are dissipating into the outside world is brought and turned towards the self. Because this self, how is it? The self is anoraniyan mahato mahiyan. It is subtler than the subtlest, and it is bigger than the biggest. Either you would say this side or that side. Why do you confuse with both? What to do? If the principle is that which can pervade the tiniest of what we can even imagine, and yet that which is bigger than the biggest, that which is all pervasive, has to be described this way. That which pervades the tiniest of the tiniest, and that which pervades bigger than the biggest. Sometimes we hear this same word, these same words in bhajans also. That Guru Mahima is also Anoraniyan, Mahato Mahiyan, Guru Mahima. It is copied from this mantra here. Now, if it is something that subtle and that huge that my mind cannot comprehend it, where do I search for it? Where do I find it? You don't have to search for it in any kind of Tirtha Kshetra or some kind of a specific spot. Nihito Guhayam. It is very much here in my own heart. The very essence of my own being. Here, heart doesn't literally mean that it is this heart which is pumping blood. When we say the heart of that conversation, you don't take it literally. It is figuratively saying that it is the very essence, the sara of it, the essence of my own being, the core of my own being. Atmasya jantoho. Jantoho, for every living being is enlivened, touched by this very principle. And it is the very core of my own being. Sometimes what happens when we see the diagrams, we see that there is the Annamaya, and inside there is the Pranamaya, then inside there is Manomaya, then Vijnanamaya, then Anandamaya. What is being said or what is being illustrated there is that each one is subtler as you go inside. And then the very inside of that Anandamaya is this Atma Chaitanya. So to remove the confusion that it is somewhere deep inside, you're saying it is, yes, subtle, that it is there also, but it doesn't mean that it is not there anywhere else. If at the physical level of organs of perception action have to function in their particular individual fields, it has to pervade there also. So it is pervasive from the grossest to the subtlest. Every layer is supported. There is no layer that can move, that can interact, that can feel its own field of experience without this being supporting the substratum. Atmasya jantoho nihito guhayam. Usually when we see, when we hear, when we taste, smell and touch, that can create a disturbance. What the Upanishad, the very purpose of Upanishad is to take the individual seeker's mind closest to that which is the Sat Vastu. Sat Vastu, the very existential principle. Yes, for a initial seeker or a novice, it might appear very distracting that the outside world and the interactions with the outside world is disturbing. Because, you see, the outside world as such is not the disturbance. It is my own desires and anticipations, expectations that create those layers of disturbance. The world as such is not a disturbance. In fact, for a sincere advanced seeker, the very interaction as it is happening is not a distraction, because they are seated through the interactions at that level wherein they are just observing those interactions. Guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. They are not distracted by it. But to reach there, one has to start with a certain discipline, wherein one has to put the effort to transcend tamakratuhu. If you have seen, whether it is Bhagavad Gita, whether it is this Upanishad or any other scripture that we are studying, the sequence is very clearly given always. That is the beauty and comprehensiveness of Upanishad. Dukkha nivritti has to happen. How can dukkha nivritti happen? Only when we know, learn, and master the art of rising above our own desires and expectations. Otherwise, we are lost in that world. And enslaved to these desires are the organs of perception, action, mind, and intellect. So one has to put that discipline initially. But then it is not something which is limited to it. That the entire life of sadhana is only meant for it. That is at the initial stage until you gain that balance. When we were young, when we every day, when we woke up, freshen up, and then we had to recite the entire mathematical table. So, आधी नींद में we used to swing. 2 1s are 2, 2 2s are 4, 2 3s are 6. And if somebody stopped that swing, the flow would have stopped. Initially, we have to learn it. It doesn't mean that after you have reached your 10th grade or engineering, you still get up in the morning and start doing it. It was at that stage where it was required. Then it is a process wherein once you have learnt it, it is your very nature that it, by reflexes, it comes automatically. Now, having balanced that mind initially, it seems like a struggle. But having balanced it, every interaction that you are doing, all that matters is where are you interacting from? Are you at the level of mind and intellect, attached to that mind and intellect and its expectations? Or are you from the standpoint of that witness observing all these motions happening, knowing very well that these motions can happen, these movements can happen, purely because I, the conscious principle, is enabling it to. So here he says that the mahima of this Atma, Mahimanam Atmanaha, where is it? It is the very core, it is the very essence. Therefore, he is saying Guhayam. It is the very essence, it is the very core of my very existence, without which none of these movements can actually happen. So, wherever you are seated, to be able to observe without trying to stop it, without trying to encourage it, it's all in that detached awareness. As soon as you detach and be aware of it, you have reached to the core of that very movement. And because it becomes so difficult, is it? Sit in the seat of meditation, close your eyes, bring all your senses away from all its interactions. Focus on your breath. Reach to that point wherein the mind is not distracted. And even if there are distractions, only observe it. Don't try to stop it. This abhyasa has to be done to understand that the very essence of every movement that happens, the very core of it, is me, the conscious principle. Though it seems easy saying it, practicing it is not that easy. Because the intensity and the purity of conviction without losing the focus has to be applied. Otherwise, it's so easy to get carried away. Continuing the same pair of opposites in the 21st mantra, page 135. आसीनो दूरं व्रजति शयानो याति सर्वतः कस्तं मदामदं देवं मदन्यो ज्ञातुमर्हति. Asinaha duram vrajati. Seated, it has the capacity to go to the farthest. Asinaha duram vrajati. Shayanaha yati sarvataha. Though seems to be lying down, it seems to be going everywhere. Kaha tam mada amadam devam madanyaha jnatum arhati. Who else can experience this other than me, the self, as the self, by the self? Madamadam, that which because of these interactions sometimes enjoys, sometimes enjoys not. Mada amadam. All of these movements, who else can recognize it other than me as the self? Then here we do the Drigdrishya Viveka. Who is it that is seeing? Who is it that is enjoying or not enjoying? Say the eyes. Sometimes the eyes are open, the mind is absent. Not just in the Vedanta class, but even otherwise. So when the eyes are open and the mind is not connected with those eyes, though things are happening right in front of it, nothing is perceived, nothing is grasped. They say the mind is to be present. The mind which it is processing it has to be evaluated by the intellect to cognize what is happening. So there has to be intellect. Now beyond that intellect, there is something which is enabling that intellect to process it, to grasp, to understand. And I, the awareness, am conscious of when I am grasping it or when I am not grasping it. So other than me, what is it that can, other than me meaning, you have to redefine the identity of that self or the definition of that self from the grossest moving deep within into the subtlest. And it is the same principle which is pervading all across. Antaha bahihi tat sarvam eva. Antar bahishya tat sarvam vyapya tishtati. That alone is established. Nothing else is. Asinaha duram vrajati. Wherever the mind goes, I am already there. Asinaha duram prajati. Shayanaha, even though the physical body is lying, the pervasiveness is not limited by the instrument. It is pervading all across. Mat amadam devam, that which is illumining all the experiences of joy or lack of joy. Devam. Devam meaning that which is illumining. Here we are not talking about a form of a certain god. Here that which is illumining. But where do we get lost? Instantly, as soon as there is a joy or a sorrow, the mind identified with that experience. I identified with that mind which is identifying with the experience. I go through the ups and downs. Disidentified with it. Let the mind go up and down. You do not have to go up and down just because the mind is going up and down. The mind can experience it provided I, the conscious principle, is allowing it to move up and down. Once you are seated in this standpoint, neither the up nor the down becomes a tragedy of life. Otherwise, the usual complaint is, I don't know what is happening. जिंदगी में ऊपर नीचे बहुत हो रहा है. That is the very definition of life. That it goes up and down. That is the very nature of experience. Instead of trying to find a solution to transcend, we try to find patchworks trying to handle the up and down. And wait for that unique opportunity wherein there are no up and down. And that is a fool's paradise. That is not a possibility. As long as there is this Sharira Mana Buddhi and it is dragged with its own prarabdha, these ups and downs cannot be avoided. Let there be ups and downs. Understand who is it that is going up and down. But instead of understanding, the immediate answer is, it is me who is going up and down. There lies the problem. It is not me, it is that layer of matter called mind which is going up and down. Without me, the conscious principle, there cannot be any up and down. Therefore, shifting that attention, getting close to that. First, you use the mind, through the mind, then you use the intellect, then the intellect also can become the witness. From that, you transcend, wherein it is not the intellect that is being the observer, but it is the conscious principle, the very awareness. Now, how do I know I am standing at the point of intellect or at the point of the awareness? If I lose that sense of balance, then I am at the state of that intellect being the observer. Even though I am observing, there is disturbance. There is being the disturbance which I am experiencing. But when you are doing it from the perspective of the very awareness, there is a sense of balance. That though there is up and down, the intellect or the mind is going through that up and down, I am not going up and down. Even you become a very good rider of your bicycle. There are twists, there are turns. So where is the confidence coming from going through all those twists, turns, up and down? Knowing that There is the balance that you have hit. As long as you are stated in that balance, seated in that balance, the turns, twist up and down is no more, uh, a difficulty. You become a master of those turns, twists, ups and downs, and it is actually enjoyable, right? Even in life, let there be ups and downs. Who is it that is experiencing? Is it the antakarana, or is it the awareness? From where am I seated to experience it? This is not a statement of ego. मेरे अलावा और कौन? No, it is not a statement of ego. It is a statement of fact that all these experiences can move only because I, the awareness, am there, present, allowing it to happen. Kastam madamadam madanyo devam jnatum arhati. And what is the key here? Jnatum. It is to recognize and to abide in that recognition. There is not much of a effort kind of involved. All other sadhanas require to get us to that point wherein we reach that balance. Having reached that balance, now, only from the standpoint of awareness, I am perceiving it. Kastam madamadam madanyo devam jnatum arhati. Continuing. If you look at the words vocabulary that is used, Bhagavan Krishna also picks up the entire vocabulary from Kathopanishad. Vita Shokaha in this mantra is repeated so many times in Bhagavad Gita. Now, even in the next sloka, the entire formatting, the language, vocabulary, Bhagavan Krishna borrows it from Yamadharmaraja. So he says in the 22nd mantra, Ashariram Sharireshu Anavastheshvavasthitam Anavastheshvavasthitam. The actual pronunciation, I mean, the Sandhi Vichhed is Anavastheshu Avasthitam Mahantam Vibhumatmanam Matvadhiro na shochati. Do you see the similarity? Matvadhiraha na shochati. Dhiraha, the one who is endowed with immense amount of patience with oneself, na shochati, does not grieve. What are the causes of grief? Ashariram sharireshu. Within the body, that which is embodied but does not have a body, does not have a form. Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, Sharireshu, amongst all these layers, stays without any form. But the identity is so strong. Identity with these layers is so strong. Man, woman, at a physical level. Sukhi, Dukhi, at the emotional level. Then at the intellectual level, it is the Mana, Avamana. constantly swinging between these polarities, where can there be stability? Purely because I am wrongly identified. See, even when you wake somebody from the deepest sleep and ask them, are you a man or a woman? Unconfused. It is not like, एक minute दो, मैं सोच के बताऊंगा. There is no confusion because the abhyasa of this identification with these layers, with these bodies is so vehemently strong. Now, why is this being pointed? If the abhyasa with the layers of matter is constant, how constant? Whenever I say, I am doing such and such, that very I, when I repeat millions of times throughout the day, what am I trying to repeat? What is the idea of that I there? That individuality which is identified with this body, mind, and intellect. Unawarefully, we are not even conscious that that is the standpoint from which we are interacting with the world. How seamless should be that? Because when we say it, it seems like a very burdensome kind of a process. When you are dealing with your wife, what do you become? Husband. As you are dealing with your wife, your child comes and you turn towards your child. What is the standpoint from which you respond to that child? Isn't it from the father's perspective? How difficult is the switch? Is it that, रुको बेटा, अब तक तुम्हारे मम्मी से झेल रहा था, थोड़ा सा स्विच करना पड़ेगा? That also happens. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. You have been having an argument and you turn towards your child. That same very frustration as a husband, as soon as you turn, you recognize that it is a child, but then unhindered, that very emotion that which was triggered earlier gets vomited here. But then a diligent one, there the switch is seamless. Wherever you go, the positioning is changing and the change is seamless. Supposing you go to the office. As a husband, you may have turbulence. But as a boss, you cannot bring that turbulence into that environment. Diligently, we push it aside, compartmentalize it, and then shift our attention and play the role of being whatever role in that office. And yet, the reminiscence of the earlier experience percolates into these, and your friends or colleagues will say, "Hey, क्या हुआ आज थोड़ा सा कुछ you look क्या the frustration at home, a little venting out that just bottled up is released, and then you get back to that particular seamless positioning where you have to function with that. We very diligently do that. My positioning or my functioning with one environment, as soon as I move, it changes. Similarly, That is with regards to the body, mind, and intellect. Similarly, let that body, mind, intellect, the sthula, sukshma, karana, sharira, let it function in its own field. उसकी फंक्शनिंग से हमें कुछ दिक्कत नहीं होना चाहिए. Where am I seamlessly standing from? Ashariram sharireshu. Anavastheshu avasthitam. That which is decaying, perishing, changing, morphing, through that, when we recognize I am that changeless which is observing the changes. This is the shift that one has to make as a seeker. I mean, that readiness to accept the change and be that changeless. See, wherever we have seen the stories of Bhagavan Ramchandra ji, or the story of Satya Harishchandra, Raja Shivi, sudden drastic changes that happen. Even Guruji, whenever he talks about that sudden shift that happens when Bhagavan has to leave his mother, Guruji tears up. So once we had the opportunity, there was a lot of us brahmacharis and swamis. We mustered up enough courage to ask, what is that emotion that is triggering? This is not the pitiful crying. It is from the appreciation of how beautifully Bhagavan Ramchandra ji adapts to the change without changing. That samasthiti, how beautifully he manages. Everything was on the platter. Suddenly everything is gone. And he remains steady. A simple little thing that we misplaced, or we lost, or simple things that happen in life. Chashme kahan hai? Yes, you have to search for it. But do you search for it from frustration, or do you search for it from the need of it, therefore you are searching? Is the example being too trivial? As simple as that. These are all changes that keep happening in life. Where are we placed to experience it? I am that changeless amongst all these changes. My trouble is not the change. Change cannot be stopped. Changes will keep happening. Sharira will have its own swasthyata or aswasthata. That is the very nature of the body. There is no point complaining about it. Recognize it. Whatever according to the prarabdha that has to be given, give it, finish it. Done. Sometimes, people have this, when they get hungry, they get very, very angry. So the word now is combined. They call it hangry. Mothers who have raised enough children, they know that when the child is becoming too restless, they immediately say, it is not for anything else that this child is becoming fidgety. It is just that they are hungry. Then when you get hungry, what do? There used to be that Hero Honda ad, right? For the petrol to be filled in. Fill it, shut it, forget it. Similarly, you put that food, fill it, shut it, forget it. But then we have become so addicted to various layers. We are picky about the temperature. ठंडा हो गया, गरम कर लो, बहुत गरम, ठंडा कर लो. Even those silly little things can agitate, irritate. All kinds of changes are inevitable. But you are not the one that is changing. It is very nature of layer of matter that it constantly changes. And what we try to do is stop the change and increase the frustration. The change cannot be stopped. The sooner we understand, the more peaceful we can be with ourselves. Not just at the physical, at the emotional level, at the intellectual level, at the interactive level, at an organizational level. When you read Puja Gurudev's life in creating this mammoth institution, do you think it was like a cakewalk? That because he was a Mahatma, everything was like, laid down at his feet? Every single day there would be unfathomable situations, to a point wherein people would say that they have heard Gurudev say that I don't have to come to different houses for bhiksha, but I have mouths to feed in the ashram, those brahmacharis that I am training. Therefore, I have to come for bhiksha and ask for alms. I don't have a requirement. The sudden surge of people that left. And if in one family there are 4 people and you have 4 factorial ruptures, imagine in an organization. Oh, it must have been easy for him because he created it. It's not that simple. It's not that easy. And respect for Guruji increases multifold because to create it is easier than to maintain that which has been created. Oh, the layers that are there. Baba re Baba. And in spite of all of that layers, where am I placed? It's not just at the body, mind and intellect. If here I cannot maintain that changeless attitude, outside the changes will drag you out and crush you. If it doesn't crush you, then it will take a hit on your health. कहते ना वर्क में प्रेशर ले लिया तो क्या होगा? Your BP will go up and down. Isn't it common? Every doctor says, at work you should take it a little easy. What are they trying to point at? Those that changes that will happen, you just have to find a method to adapt to hit the balance. The changes cannot be stopped. Anavastheshu, the anavasthiti, meaning constantly turbulent, constantly changing. That is the very nature of this prapancha. Anything that which got created through the Panchama Bhuta will be constantly changing. If the entire environment is made out of impermanent changing things, how can we expect permanency? Somebody was laughing. Swamiji, what are you doing these days in Hyderabad? I said, there's a huge establishment, and then one by one layer, I'm working with carpenters, uh, the cement and masonry, electric works. Yes, we have built all this. Do you think they're going to stay permanent? They will change. When they change, when they depreciate, when they dilapidate, what do you have to do? Create a network of things wherein they can be maintained. पता नहीं, wherever you go, because you're still in the layer of matter, and matter will constantly change. All that you have to find is to find a rate of adaptability where you constantly stay in that balance. Whether it is in the vyavahara or whether it is in the layer that I am enlivening, these changes cannot be avoided. Where am I seated? If this cannot be attained while everything seems to be in a good disposition, imagine when they go for a toss. Because as you age, what will be impacted? Health will be impacted. Every joint will start speaking to you. Mind has its own issues. You want to remember, कहीं देखा तो है इसको, कौन है याद नहीं आ रहा. There will be issues. Getting bogged down by them is not the solution. That is the very nature of all these transitions. Don't try to fight it. Adapt to it. Hit the balance. And from that balance, evaluate and work. And that is where the beautiful statement that Gurudev gives. Change is the changeless law of this universe. We very detachedly listen to that statement. It's a very profound statement. भैया दुनिया में हर चीज बदलता रहता है, हर व्यक्ति हर मनोस्थिति बदलता ही रहता है. That is the very nature of it. Don't try to fight it. Let the changes happen. You are the changeless. That has to be understood and that has to be abided in. Anavastheshu avasthitam. Mahantam vibhumatmanam. Vibhum. There are these layers of matter that become vividam bhavati. Though these layers of matters vividam bhavati, I the substratum which is supporting all of it, without which these changes cannot be recognized, I am the changeless being, vibhum. Atmanam, that is the very self, that is the very core. And that is the beauty, that is the greatness of it. Why is it Mahantam? That it does not change. There is not even an iota of change that can occur. Knowing this changeless alone, Matva, understanding this, Dhiraha, the one who is endowed with patience, can find the courage to not be pulled down by sorrows, miseries, and disturbances. See, our way of approach is to try stop these disturbances or ups and downs. Whenever we think of solutions, that is where our mind switches into. But instead, understanding that that is the very layer, that is the very nature of matter. Don't try to fight the nature of matter. Mothers do it in the kitchen. When you have, vegetables and other things that there is a portion of that vegetable that has wilted away. What do? कल सोचा था इसको बना देंगे, एक दिन, one day late and so that portion has to be cut away. The rest of it is used. That is how is the nature of the entire universe. Changes will keep happening. To maintain that consistency of changeless status. So one day somebody came and said to Gurudev, Swamiji, my husband is coming to you for the last so many years. I'm sorry to say, he has not changed even a bit. And Gurudev, in his impeccable way, turned to that Amma and said, please congratulate me. What do I have to congratulate? If not for me, he could have gone further lower. He's at least at the status quo. And then said to that Amma, it seems, isn't it that we are all trying in the name of sadhana to reach to that changeless state? Mahantam vibhum atmanam matva dhiraha na shochati. How do we reach to that? There are so many methods, but then losing the focus of the method, we get stuck in the process itself. Even in sadhana, that is being highlighted. So if you see the pattern, every 2 shlokas once, Yamadharma Raja is reminding us, don't get caught up in the process. Understand the purpose of the process, use that to reach to that purposefulness and not get caught in that process itself. So there, highlighting, he says, Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha na medhaya na bahuna shrutena yame vaishavrunute tena labhyaha tasyaisha atma vivranate tanum swam. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyaha. This Atma Chaitanya, the irony of this statement, pravachanena na labhyaha. We go to the satsanga. Now I have become Atmavan. सत्संग में नहीं मिलता. Otherwise, we become professional satsangi. Running from one satsanga to the other, or one study group to the other, constantly trying to finish text after text after text, newer texts, newer understanding. Atma has not become variable. It has been the same. The tattva, the process is very, very similar. And then people have the misunderstanding that sitting in satsanga, I will attain lot of punya. थोड़ा पुण्य तो मिल जाएगा स्वामी जी. Satsanga, the truth of it is not the place where you get punya. Satsanga is the result of all the punya that we have acquired, that we get the opportunity to have the Shravana, thereby triggering Manana and Nididhyasana. It's the other way around. If the Pravachana, through the Pravachana, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana does not get triggered, that it just becomes a mere intellectualization and the thrill of the intellect to be in that realm of intellectualization, then the purpose is lost. Na pravachanena labhya. Na medhaya. There are some great people that I have come across wherein they have memorized the entire Ramayana, 24,000 shlokas. As soon as you hear it also, it's like impressive. Wow. I have had the opportunity to sit and listen to somebody who spoke on Mahabharata 41 days. Of the 1 lakh shlokas, he could, very easily chant without a book, without any reference, the entire Mahabharata. At that time when he was alive, he used to be in Vijayawada. So in his last leg of his life, he did a complete Mahabharata series. Malladi Chandrasekhara Shastri. Man, what a profound intellect. He could repeat the entire 100,000 shlokas. Not just repeat, connect the dots from here to there to there to here. Amazing. I have come across some professors, at least 2-3 of them, who are in the field of academics with regards to, say, Shankara Bhashya and such. All the Shankara Bhashya, they have memorized. Yes, the physical copy of the book uploaded into the intellect, memorized at will, they are on your fingertips, is a good intellect. But beyond that, what is being achieved? With that knowledge, with that understanding, with that Medha Shakti, what is it that is being achieved at? Is it triggering the clarity towards the pathway to the self? Or are we satisfied with the learning of it and the repetition of it because the Medha Shakti is amazing? In Andhra, Telangana, there is one particular brand of literary giants. It's no ordinary skill. They do Ashtavadhana, Shatavadhana, Sahasravadhana, Sahasra Shatavadhana. Just to give you an idea, there will be 8 people sitting around him. 7 have the job to give different literary puzzles. They'll give random, one fellow will give random words. And those random words are ridiculous. He says with these set of 8 words in one shloka, and that shloka should be in this chanda. And every word that you use should end with ka or ra or ma. Now narrate the entire Ramayana in that chanda, in that shloka, using these 8 words that I have given to you. There is no paper, there is no pen, and I have had the opportunity to sit through few. For following all the questions that they have asked and what are the variations and permutations they have asked, you need a paper and pen to write down to keep a track of things. That is one fellow asking. The other fellow will say, there are these kinds of. The 8th fellow, oh man, he is also a great Pandita, but the 8th fellow's job is to constantly distract this person who is going through that test. Constantly. And his very name is Aprastuta Prasangi. Unrelatable, incohesive, constant disturbance he has to create. And in spite of all of that, this fellow has to go through each person, answer them, one problem at a time, and go in circles. While that fellow who is disturbing you, you cannot get annoyed with. You have to keep entertaining that fellow, answer his unrelated topics. His job is to confuse. If the 8 people scenario is understood, there are those that are having to face 100 of them, 1,000 of them. Apara Medha Shakti. And they are all, their spontaneity for poetry in several languages, amazing to watch. Adi Shankaracharyaji's stotra comes into mind. Tatakim. Having all that capacity, if it does not trigger the spiritual awakening, what is the use of such medha? Medhaya bahuna shrutena. Swamiji, I have heard Gurudev, I have had the opportunity to even hear, this Mahatma. फायदा क्या हुआ? कोई फायदा हुआ? What is the benefit of all of this? These are all processes. What do these processes have to trigger? Yamai vesha vrunute tena labhyaha. Has it brought the clarity to my understanding that nothing other than this Nitya Vastu I am interested in? I choose only that Nitya Vastu. That is the beauty of Nachiketa. He was given so many layers of distraction, and in spite of all of those distractions, what did he say? He said, महाराज यमधर्मराज जी, आपको ये तीसरा देना हो तो दीजिए, नहीं देना चाह रहे हो, keep the third boon to yourself. Tavaiva vaha. I am not going to budge down from this pursuit of Nitya Vastu. All this Medha Shakti, all this processing power, all the beautiful, amazing treasure that the mind can bring, if it is not tuned to find the self as the very priority, all of that is down the drains. Udara nimittam bahukruta veshaha. There are several things that people use to make a living. This is also one of them. It also becomes one of them. Nothing more than that. Yamai vesha vrunate tena labhyaha. Those thus choose vivrunate. Atma alone, this Nitya Vastu alone as the priority. To them alone, this experience of the self is a possibility. तेन लभ्या. मतलब क्या? I will keep doing everything else. In the list somewhere down the lane is also Atma, Chaitanya, Adhyatma. I can also call myself as spiritual. But Swamiji, don't you say that, Bhagavad Gita, you have to keep working in the field, you cannot avoid, you cannot run away. Where is the balance? What is this? It creates a lot of confusion. See, none of them can be avoided. All that you have to do is change the priority. At this moment, life, living experience is the priority, and then Adhyatma also is there in secondary or tertiary. Whereas the priority change should be that my pursuit is for this Atma Tattva, that is the primary, the rest of it is secondary, tertiary. Because that cannot be stopped. That is the wave of prarabdha which will take you along. But that should become secondary or tertiary. That which you are facing as prarabdha, bringing the results, you need not have anxiety about it. You need not have fear about it. It will come because you have already put the effort. Just because you are feeling anxious about it, it doesn't make it quicker. The old movies, operation room, the patient goes in, the red light comes out, and this fellow is pacing up and down. Even if you don't pace, बच्चा तो पैदा होगा. Because you are pacing up and down doesn't mean that बच्चा तो जल्दी जल्दी आ जाएगा. Result will come. Let it come at its own time. That has to be reprioritized. We have to work the entire sequence wherein other than this Atma Chaitanya, nothing else. The rest of it is secondary or tertiary. Thus one chooses only this, for them alone, this is a possibility. I am choosing my word here. It is a high possibility. Because after that, then there is the pursuit of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and the regularity of it, the consistency of it. I've taken too much time today. I'll stop here. Suddenly I saw that. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.